Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Amateur Repair Time. I've got this cool little clock that I picked up at the flea market a little while back, and I wanted to do a video on seeing if I could repair it. It's a Russian-made clock, or a Soviet-made clock. It has a little chip here, but other than that, it's in really nice shape. I think it's probably from the 70s, I'm going to guess, maybe the 80s. So it was just interesting to me. It was sitting, there's this one guy at the flea market that he gets interesting stuff all the time. I don't know where he got a Russian clock, and I don't think it's worth any money or anything, but you know, you just don't see stuff like this that often. So figured we'd check it out. It's a VESNA. Doesn't have a second hand, and says made in the USSR. Now, of course, you know, most desk clocks like this wouldn't have a second hand anyway. It's got a couple little, it's kind of cheaply made, but not crazy cheaply made. I don't know what this material is, but I've seen similar stuff on like some kind of like Asian. You used to go to the mall and they would sell like these little plants, you know, or little bamboo stalks and stuff like that at the mall, and they would have like this same kind of, I don't know, design or material that it's made out of. So I don't know what you would call that, but it's kind of got like a Chinese look to it. It has a plastic back. With little screws. And I believe this will pop off. Well, let's see if we can tell what this says. What is that? I can't tell. Let me pop that off before I break it. The reason that it was interesting to me once I started looking at it is because it has a balance wheel type construction instead of a spring driven construction. Well, I guess it's still got to be spring driven, doesn't it? Yeah, this wheel here will have the spring in it, but it's a balance wheel instead of a pendulum. So I just thought it was interesting. Okay, I think maybe we'll try to wind it up and see what's going on. I think I tried it before though, and it won't run. So I don't know if we'll be able to fix this or not, but we're going to try. If you're seeing this video, we probably fixed it or I wouldn't have uploaded the video. 3ABO, well, is that just Russian letters and I don't know what it says? And does that say 90? I don't know. It's just different, something you don't see every day. Let's see what these say. VESNA. 8655. Have no idea what the significance of that is. Let me find a key that will fit this. Well, none of these keys fit it. It's a lot bigger than they usually are. So I use this key. That's right, folks. I used this key and I wound it a little bit with it, and I'm not seeing any action on my balance wheel up here. We'll take that cover off here in a second. I don't want to wind it all the way up because then I'm going to have to let it down with a pair of pliers if it doesn't start, and it doesn't look like it's starting. So let me take this screw off so we can take that cover off and just look at what they're doing with the balance there. Now, I'll bet some of you that really know about clocks can tell what the problem is just by seeing that. Like, why is it? It just won't go. Now, if I hadn't wound this, I could start taking this apart. I wish I could see down in the plates. Maybe through the magic of a camera I can. Not really. You can't really get a good look at it. Somebody's burning rubber out there on the interstate. Well, I could just oil all of these gears, but then I can't get to the front, so I could remove it. I mean, if I get it out of the mount, I could probably oil it pretty well. Okay, yeah, so there's nothing on the back of here. So this is the balance assembly is just all right here. I'm trying to decide if any of it's mounted in the You'd think you could put pressure on this and it would just, there we go. Boy, I hope it's this loud. I hope it stays that loud. Okay, so the way it's half-heartedly running, I think is like a oil issue. I think it's just been sitting forever and it all needs oiled. Let me see if it's easy to remove it from the case or what kind of trouble we're going to run into there. So the bezel just turned, and whenever it lined up with these, it just came right off. And then if you look at the hands, look how they're held on. With a pin, just like the really old Americans. That's pretty cool. All right, yeah, so I'm going to remove the hands, and then I'm going to unscrew the movement from the back so we can go just take it out of this this set, or whatever you want to call it, case. And then we should be able to, I can at least look at the pivots and everything and see if it looks like all of that needs removed and oiled. And if we have to disassemble it, I can at least get a good look at it. So this is the front of the clock. Now, I pulled the hands off. So these are no longer lined up. And I don't know if I did that when I was pulling the hands off or if that's been our problem the whole time. So this one is the, I'm going to get this all screwed up. This is the, one's the minute, one's the hour. Let me think about it. So this will turn, oh, this is the hour because that's where the hour mounts. So this is the hour barrel or whatever, the hour hand, the hour wheel. But there's like a barrel here. And then under it is the minute, but if you look, it's not lined up. So I don't know if I did that when I pulled the hands off or if that's just why it's not turning because it's jammed. Okay, so I'm going to remove this little Russian C-clip and then remove the hour wheel and then try to line that up. Now remember, this is still under spring. We also got to watch the back, make sure I'm not destroying the balance. I don't think I can because it's the way those plates are. All right. All right, so that was easily removed. And then this little gear was on the side to here. That was the one I was saying that was jammed. And it basically was the liaison between that gear and this gear, which is just a little plastic thing that you can turn apparently to set the time, right? So with it all out, I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but if you put a little pressure on the spring barrel, well, if I can do it with one hand, and in the right direction. Come on, baby, show them what you got. Come on, baby. Well, not that way. You get what I'm trying to do. Come on. Well, anyway, I can do it with two hands. If you hold this steady and you twist the barrel, put pressure on it, tick, 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 it starts up. So in other words, it's probably, I would just think that inside this spring barrel, you've got some really old grease that's not allowing the spring to unwind easily. So it's just kind of caked and stuck in there. So you wind it up, and you're winding up the middle, but you're not actually, how would that work? You're not actually moving the spring or whatever. But anyway, so I think we need to get all the way into it. But this thing, you know, I've been winding it, so this is under pressure. So I've got to figure out how to let it down without a key. So I'll do that off camera. Now, if I come back, this is what my hands look like before I lost my fingers. All right. So I very carefully removed the balance assembly. It just has one screw that holds it in place. And there's a little wafer thing under it, like a little, almost like a gasket. About lost it there, didn't I? Don't play with your food, people. And so then once that was off, I could get to the pallet fork and the bridge that holds it on. Cool. And then once I got that off, and I was holding this while I was doing that. Once I got that off, this started spinning freely, which was basically the powertrain unwinding. Since I didn't have a key, I couldn't do it the other way. The key, it seems like, is like 6 millimeter, which I don't know. I guess I'll order one. Okay, so, but this is unwound, so that's good. So all the tension is off of it, and it's a pretty simple clock. It kind of reminds me of the simplicity of the anniversary clocks. There's just a few gears in them, and you know, there's not a lot going on. So I'm going to try to take this apart. I think this will just slide off. The only thing I'm worried about is this wheel here, which I don't know. Is that called the fourth wheel because it's just right before the escape wheel? Is that an escape wheel? I think so. So I think that's called the first, the second, the third. Yeah, I don't know. So if that's the first, that would be the second, and then the minute wheel would be the third. which would make this the 4th, which would make that the 5th, but I don't think it works like that. Whatever. So I'm going to see, because the whole problem is all of these can be removed from their plates if this slides off, and I believe it will. But if that doesn't come off, then you can't remove that wheel from the plate. So disassembling the plates won't do me any good. So let me see what I can do. If I can get this to pop off, that shaft will be good, but I'm not going to force it or anything. Okay, so I just didn't have the ability to take that off. And I'm sure there's a tool you can use to press that off, but I don't want to bend it trying to pry on it and stuff, so I'm just leaving it in. So I'm going to have to leave that in that bushing. That's okay. So I'm just going to clean it up a little bit by hand, just using some alcohol. It looked like that, and then we're going to oil it. It looked, once I had the pallet fork and the balance off, I mean, everything, the whole train moved freely. So I think everything was pretty cool. But I'm going to try to clean up the bushings a little bit. And then we're going to put it back together and oil it. And I'm going to try to clean the pivots. And I'm going to try to polish them a little bit, but I'm not that great at that. I've got some polishing, some little sticks that you're supposed to use. I'll show them to you here in a minute. To just see if I can get that any better. But I think the very first thing I'm going to do is see if I can disassemble that and just get a look inside of it and see if the grease is all dried up. Or if we can just add a little oil on top of it to make it move pretty good. So I'm going to lay these over here so I can kind of remember what order they went in. I guess they'll only go in one. But that's what we got going on. And here's the other plate. It's just plated crap. This stuff, the problem with these is that the plating comes off and then the pivot's all screwed up. But this one probably hasn't been used that much. All right, let me see if I can pop this open. All right, so actually it's in pretty good shape. The cover came right off. And there's not a lot of like any kind of grease or anything on it. I don't know that they put anything on it. I'm going to put some just regular clock oil on it that, kind of, fairly lightweight oil, since I'm going to be using it on the other stuff anyway. I don't think there's much to clean up inside of there. I guess there's a little bit of grease or oil down there in the bottom you can see. So I don't think that was the problem. I think it was just a lot of the pivots were dry. That's my guess. But nothing's broke, so I guess that's good. Look how they did this barrel. A little bit of wear on it. That's pretty cool. Hey, if it works. All right, so I'm going to slowly start putting it back together. So these are my polishing sticks. Now explain this crap to me. I think what you're supposed to do, basically, someone mentioned it on one of my last clock videos that I did, and they pointed out, I don't have any left because I put them back in, but they pointed out that the pivots, the part that goes through the bushings, it's just a steel pin, basically. But you're supposed to polish those, or they'll wear out the bushings. The bushings are made softer than the pivots so that the bushings wear out instead of the pivots. And so if you can buy these are made for polishing. And I think what you're supposed to do is just squeeze they have like felt on them. I think you're supposed to just squeeze the end of the pivot in them and then rotate it over and over again, and theoretically it will remove any kind of oil or dirt that's on it and polish it up a little bit. But I don't know if you're supposed to put like jeweler's rouge or something on there. I don't know what you're supposed to put on them. I just did it dry, but I would imagine you're supposed to put something on there. But I did attempt to polish them. I'm trying to get better, folks. And I got to tell you, there's only a few gears in there, but for whatever reason, this thing was really a pain to put back together. So basically, you have to line everything up when you put the plate back on. When you put this one is the one that goes on. But there's only, well, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 pinions and the 3 posts, so you know it shouldn't be that hard, but I gotta say it was kind of hard. But everything's moving good. It seems like it's moving better than it was. I oiled all of the, I got a little bit too much on that one. I oiled the few little bushings, but I think the problem was probably in the smaller stuff that's more like a clock, more like a watch than it is like a clock. So we'll do that next. So I have cleaned, what I cleaned everything with was just alcohol. And I wasn't able to press that off. The plates, it's plated. If I put that in my ultrasonic, it's going to take a lot of this plating off. So I don't want to do that. So I just cleaned it with the alcohol, and then I took a toothpick and pushed through the bushings to try to clean them up as best I could with alcohol. And now I've oiled them, and so we're going to start putting this back. All right, so I got the escapement wheel back in. I've got a microscope with video on it, but I'm not really good enough at this yet that I can really do that. I don't want to film stuff that I'm not doing the proper way in the first place. So I've cleaned it up as best I can. I've oiled the pivots just barely, you know, and if I put a little pressure on the spring, it's spinning. So up till there, we're good. But as you know, if you know anything about these, that's not the important part. Okay, so next up is the pallet fork. That's kind of the important part. All right, I think I was actually able to do it. So I didn't show you the whole thing, but the way these work is there's a pallet fork that's basically, it takes the place of the verge on the pendulum clocks. So on a pendulum clock, the pendulum goes back and forth, and as it crosses center, it hits the crutch and makes the verge let one tooth of the escape wheel go. And then when the pendulum swings back the other way, it does the same thing. Tick, tock, and each time it goes, it lets a tooth of the escape wheel turn. And that's how it regulates the time. Without that, if you just wound this up, it would just immediately unwind like it was doing earlier. You saw that. So this basically stops that. I don't have it wound up right now, but basically we're going to have the balance here. That's next with the hairspring. And so it spins one way, and then when it spins back, there's a little tiny post that sticks down, and it hits the fork here. And so click, and then it spins around, and it tightens up the spring, the hairspring, and then it spins back, and when it goes back, it hits the fork again, the pallet fork. And it goes, well, I don't want to force it, but it clicks back the other way. Now, if you had a little, I can't show it to you, but if you had a little tension on this, it would push it, you know, as the spring hits the pallet fork. I don't know that I can even show you that. And there you go. If I mess with it a little bit, it might go. So you can see it moving in there. It's getting caught on the escape wheel, but that's what it's supposed to do, right? So it'll go back and forth as the balance hits it. It has to be pretty much in perfect shape in the perfect spot. And and the balance has to be pretty much in perfect shape in the perfect spot. All the other stuff can have wear on it, but the balance and the fork have to be pretty nice or it's not going to work right. So if your hairspring is bent up, you have problems. And the balance wheel and the hairspring is going to mount right there in that jewel. And then there's a little post that's going to land right in the middle of that fork. I don't know why that fork looks kind of mangled. I didn't do that, folks. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, of course you did it. No, I did not. Maybe it's an optical illusion. Oh, it is an optical illusion. It's like a trident. Yeah, it's like a trident. Very cool. And you see the red down in there? That's actually, there's a jewel on the end of the pallet fork as well. All right, so let me see if I can get an up close of the balance, and we'll see that little nub that hits it. So in that jewel will be the center of the balance wheel, and so that little nub that I'm talking about is right by the center on this particular design. And so if you look at the balance, don't get dizzy. Don't get dizzy. We're getting there. There it is. If you look at the balance, it's not mounted in the top right now, of course. But that little tiny jewel post right there is what hits that as it swings around. So this spring, when properly centered, will allow this balance to twist like it's doing the hula torsion, and that little thing will go click, and it'll push the pallet fork one way, and then it'll spin around to about here, and then that spring will tighten up, and it'll say, wait a minute, that's enough of that, and it'll push it back the other way. And whenever it starts spinning the other way, that little jewel will move back and hit the pallet fork again, click, and then it'll move up to about here, and on it will go. And the pallet fork has to be designed in such a way that when it snaps, it kind of pushes that little post a little bit. Because if it doesn't, what will happen is that spring, you know, it's not a perpetual motion machine. The spring, if you didn't have any kind of tension on that pallet fork, this will spin around, and then the next time it loses a little inertia, and it keeps going until it stops. And that's just what they do whenever they're not, the mainspring isn't wound out. It'll go, and then it'll stop, and it'll start slowing down, and it'll stop. So that the mainspring actually pushes that a little bit. It gives it just a little bit of a flick to get it going. And you kind of need that anyway for it to be self-starting. All right, so I'm very carefully going to flip this back over and try to get it centered in there. Oh, and if the balance staff is broken, that little point right on the end of it, I can't get any closer. It's almost impossible to see. But this little point right there, if that little point is broken, the balance staff is broke, and it won't work, obviously. And then there's another one just like it up on the top that mounts in this little jewel right here of this bridge whenever it's all put together. Look at that hair right there. So we have to very carefully get that mounted in that jewel and in the one up on the movement. But if we get that done, that's pretty much the end of it, and hopefully it'll work. All we did was we just took it all apart and cleaned it a little bit. And we're going to oil it, of course. All right, so I chickened out and I didn't put oil on this very top jewel. This one is called a shock jewel, I think. I think it's what it's called. So basically there's two of them. And it's so that, well, I don't know. I guess it's so that it doesn't get dislodged. I don't know. I guess that's the shock part. But anyway, if you take this screw and this screw out, this one lifts off. And then you can put a drop of oil, a little teeny, the world's smallest drop of oil on the bottom of this jewel. And it will be suspended just above the balance shaft. But this is amateur repair time, and that's not amateur. So I'm going to leave that alone on this one. Maybe we'll do it on the next one. If this one runs, we're just going to leave it. Now, if you look, I don't like messing with these hair springs, but you got to mess with the hair springs eventually. So this is, I'm going to call it a win if we're able to get this thing to run. Look how the hairspring is perfectly centered once I put it back in there. The truth on these is they look scary as hell, but the truth is, if you're very careful, they don't bend that easy. I mean, yeah, if you smash them, they bend. But if you very carefully pick that bridge up, you know, with tweezers, even with the balance hanging from it, if you very carefully pick it up and lay it down, and then clean it or do whatever you're going to do, and then very carefully pick it back up and put it in place and wiggle it around until it kind of falls right where it needs to go. And you need to get that bottom of the balance staff down in the jewel, and then you need to very carefully get the bridge where the jewel is right on the top of the balance staff, and then kind of set it into place. And then I'm using my thumb, but you know, use a little pair of your tweezers or something, and then just check and say, yeah, look, it looks like it's centered. It looks like it must be mounted just in the jewels, or it wouldn't be able to do that. So if you get it like that, you should be good. So I've oiled everything, but I didn't oil the shock thing, which might be the most important one. But hey, folks, like I said, baby steps. Why do you think I'm working on a Russian clock, folks? Come on now. I'm trying not to ruin anything that anybody cares about. Right? Okay, so we're ready to wind it. I'm just going to wind it a little bit and see if that starts ticking. But I don't have a winder, so I got to use my pliers. Okay, folks, so I'm using my microscope, a digital microscope. The audio on is horrible, so this part just won't sound all that great. But what I've done is I actually did take that little shock jewel or whatever it's called, cap jewel maybe it's called, off with this microscope. And if you look at the little green around the jewel, so that's like dried, look at that. That's dried up oil. So there's probably some of that in there too. That I need to clean up and then put a little bit of oil on it. And hopefully that'll get it tick-tocking. And I'm going to look at the other ones too and just make sure everything looks clean. Everything moves so smooth except for the balance, you know, that we're looking at here, and the pallet fork. So I think whatever was keeping it from working properly is probably somewhere in that. The pallet fork you can actually see right there in the center of the screen, but just barely. So that's right. That's one of the forks, and this is the other fork. And then it actually goes together. That's its pivot. And then there's a post that goes through here that we talked about earlier, the fork or whatever it's called, that grabs the balance wheel as it spins around. This is the balance wheel. This is the balance wheel, of course, and this is the hairspring. Okay, so I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit. Okay, so that's the pallet fork. I took it, put it all together, and it just wasn't, it didn't have much amplitude. That's the pallet fork jewel. Look how ugly that thing is. Look how bad that is. Now I've got a little wind on it, so I'm holding the wheel here so that it doesn't go on us. But look at that jewel. There's no way that's clean enough. So I'm just going to take some isopropyl alcohol, whatever, and put a little bit on it. See if we can clean it up a little bit. I need to get some of those little sticks that you can use to clean this stuff up. I'm working with what I've got, folks. Ooh, boy, she's ugly, isn't she? That's going to have the same thing, isn't it? That's a cap jewel. Yeah, I think that's a cap jewel like the other one. And look at that stray hair there. That's a cap jewel like the other one. And so what we're seeing is down inside between the two jewels. So I need to take that whole part off, which might be problematic because of this, because I've got a wind on it. Okay, let me, I didn't put much of a wind on it, but let me see if I can get this farther apart. Okay, so that's with the whole plate off. I'm just trying to clean it up. It's really, they're a lot uglier than the other one. So I'm just going to clean, and clean the other side too, because I think like that center one there for sure has a little pivot in it, has a little hole in it. So both sides have to be clean. So let me work on that a little bit. So one of the coolest parts of doing one of these is that when you finally get the balance in there just right, even before you get the screws all in it, it just takes off. Look at that. Like that. Looks healthy. I don't know if it's going too fast though, but you know, it really can't go too fast. Just the way it's designed, it can't. If it goes too, so let's say that there's a post right here. If this goes from here to here and then back, and then to here and back, I think they call that amplitude. If it only goes like this, it hits the fork more, which will make the clock run too fast. If it were to go way over here, and then way back, and then way over here, and then way back, it would probably be too slow because it would be hitting the fork less often, right? So this one appears to be, let me see if I can eyeball it. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think it's going to like here and back. That's the swing, I think. So I think that's probably right. But you know, there's really only one way to tell. You can use that little, I know there's that little thing where you can tell by the sound. I'm not messing with one of those, okay? I do it the old-fashioned way. You put the hands on it, you set it at whatever your clock says on your phone, and then you come back in 10 minutes and see if it looks all right. And then you go, cool, it looks pretty good. And then you come back in an hour, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is a little adjustment on it to speed it up or slow it down, so very cool. Okay, so now that we've got it running, I'm going to order some keys from timesavers.com. That's a good place to get keys because they're cheap. These are actually kind of expensive for most of them, but they're like $3.50, something like that. I got them remeasured to make sure I get the right size, but they've got 5mm, 6mm, 5.7, 5mm, 5.25mm, and it just goes on and on and on. I went in their key category. They have 600 keys listed in their key category just for clocks. They also have pocket watch keys and stuff like that. So a lot of the parts you can still get. Now, if any of those gears were screwed up or something, I probably couldn't get that. But if it was a bigger name clock, I might be able to. But keys and generic stuff like that, even new dials, new dial glass, dial bezels, even stuff like that, you can still get all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know on these keys. I know it's not, but I don't know on the stuff like the dial glass and the bezels and stuff. It may just all be old stock stuff that's been sitting around since the 80s. I don't know, but they have a ton of crap. So if you're into clocks at all, you probably already know about them. But if you don't, go to timesavers.com and just look at all the parts they've got, and they're all inexpensive. They don't. You'll be surprised at how cheap everything is. And you know. It's almost like the pricing is how it was as well back in the 90s or the 80s. So anyway, I'm just going to order a bunch of different size keys. I've got you saw earlier, I've got a whole ton of them anyways, but I didn't realize I needed some bigger ones for some of these clocks, so I'll get some bigger ones. Okay, folks, I've only been watching it about half an hour, but it seems to be pretty much right on for what you can tell in half an hour. So it's definitely not way off. So if it's off, it's a little off. But I'll keep watching it for the next few days. That spring, it seems to me, is probably like an 8-day spring, I would assume. It might be a 30, but probably an 8-day spring. So it's a little bit of a pain that you got to take that plastic back off. It might be a good idea to drill a hole in the back of it. I don't know. I guess it's not that big of a trouble to take the back off because it just pops right off. You could drill a hole in it where all you'd have to do is stick the key in, but if you're already on the back of the clock, can't you take the back off the clock? That's probably what the Russians were thinking whenever they made it. Also, I touched up the end here where it was chipped. I just use Sharpies. Sometimes you can get away with that. So see how it's different colors. So it's like orange, and then there's some red in there, and there's some brown in there. So what I did was I took an orange Sharpie and made it all orange, and it was way too light. And then I took a little bit of red and made it a little more red. And then I took the brown and made it a little more brown. And I just kept going with the brown because it would get darker and darker as you went, because you're seeing the orange and the red under it. I just kept going until it looked like it was about the right shade. So easy peasy. Nobody ever even noticed it if I didn't point it out to you. Did you see the one? No, you didn't see it because I didn't point it out to you. All right, folks, so there you go. Let me know what you think. I don't know if this video will convince you to buy one of these or not. But I just like picking up things that are a little different that you don't see all the time, and I had never seen one of these, so I like it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you listen to it tick a little bit. But leave your comments down below and let us know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts. Now, if you like the clock repair videos, I did a video on that clock a while back. That was a fun one. Really cool. So anyway, here's what she sounds like. We'll see you on the next video.